Ryan, how you feeling?
I'm feeling ready.
I feel like I should play a song to
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this day ever since the first one of these sessions that we did, waiting for my chance for redemption. So I'm
for
excited.
redemption. Yeah, for
Yeah.
those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Ryan had a little bit of a rough time with the multi-source reasoning. He did the data insight section first, and it was not fun. I've had the same problem that he had, and it is not a fun problem. It's really, really not. So yeah, that was a rough one. We're gonna do verbal today. All right. So let's go ahead and get started because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time afterwards to go over the questions and to ask Ryan about his experience in taking the sections. So this is welcome to the second of our 3 Twitch the GMAT sessions. Ryan is taking all 3 sections of the same exam. So he did the DI section the first time and then paused the exam. He's going to do the verbal section tonight. And then our final session, which is December 4th. Is that right, Ryan? I think it's December 4th.
That sounds right.
For the December 4th session, he's going to do the quant section to finish off the exam. And then he will at that point reveal to himself and to all of us what his score is on this test. And I forgot to introduce ourselves. So I'm Stacey Koprince. I am an instructor with Manhattan Prep, and I'm also the director of content and curriculum for the company. I have been with the company since 2005, a really long time now. And I think the GMAT is fun. And I know that Ryan's the only one here who agrees with me on that, but we'll try to make it somewhat fun so that you can get through what you need to do to get ready for this test. And Ryan, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Ryan Jacobs. I'm a Manhattan Prep instructor. I've been with Manhattan Prep since 2011, so going on 12 years now. And yeah, I do a lot of GMAT. I'm very excited about the focus. It's given me a lot to think about. And this is my first time taking a practice test. So I am going to take the real thing pretty soon, hopefully in December. So I'm treating this kind of like a trial run, and I'm actually learning a lot by doing it. So I hope you guys are too.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, why don't you get yourself set up to start that verbal section?
All right.
And then I'm going to go on mute. If you have questions as Ryan's going, feel free to toss those into the chat. He obviously won't look at them until he's done with the test, but he'll be able to take a look at them afterwards. And then I'll be taking screenshots of everything as we go so that we can go take a look at it afterwards, since he's not actually going to finish the test today.
All right. Let me get started. Might take me just a moment to resize my screen and everything.
Oh yeah, the other thing he's doing is he's going to do all of his scratch work on the screen, even for the math, so that we can see it. Normally you wouldn't do that.
I don't want to take my break, so I'm just going to hit continue. And here we go. Oh, I get instructions. Okay. Normally this is timed, I think.
Yeah, and the real test, the instructions are 30 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hit next. And we're going. All right, so I'm going to set up my scratch paper real quick. 2, 13. I'm counting up by 11s here. 24, 35. And then we want 5 questions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the first page. All right, consultants, several. So this is flaw. So this is kind of a week in the area. Oops, I won't draw on the screen. So we've got a weekend. Consultants, several recent articles have discussed nonverbal communication as an element of persuasion. Okay. Body language, eye contact, reading mentioning words. Are they? Wow. Okay. Persuading someone to adopt a certain point of view. Okay. Well, I mean, that's true unless like there's something specific to sales or something. So let's just, I'm not sure what, what the answer is going to be. So let's read these A, B, C, D, E. The sales team makes excessive use. This could lead to stagnant sales. That does weaken a little bit, but I don't like the word excessive there, so I don't like that answer. Cost of hiring someone to teach nonverbal communication, we offset by increased. So that would strengthen, not weaken. That's not good. Products sold by the company are not objectively better. Well, that's irrelevant. Sales teams' nonverbal communication skills are not optimal at present. That would strengthen. Company's sales force does not make most of its sales calls in person. Oh, interesting. It's either A or E. I think it's E, but I don't want to linger on this. Let's go. E next. Yes. Okay, consulting firm, which following statements most strongly supported? Okay, so this is a draw a conclusion question. Because the statements are most strongly supported by the information. Okay, a consulting firm compiles a yearly ranking of the world's leading companies according to the amount of money each spent on research. Okay. Shown that in past, spending more on research has no correlation with better financial performance. Interesting. This year's study found that multinational companies that took a global approach to research financially outperformed those that concentrated okay. So A is a bridge too far. I wouldn't say that it's necessary, just that it's helpful. So necessary is too strong. Companies seeking to improve their financial performance can usually do so by increasing. Well, I wouldn't say that that's true. I would just say it happened this one time. So I don't love B. Only largest countries are able to thrive. No, because there's nothing about only large companies being able to spend on global research. A company with low ranking research spending may have better financial performance than a company with a high ranking. Oh. Yeah, I think that's directly stated. Let's look at a company currently spending the most on research and development. It's not likely to be among. I wouldn't say that. I mean, it might be just kind of random. So I think it's D. They actually say that. Let's move on. Okay, reading comp. Are we done on time? Pretty decent, fine. Many stars are born in clusters of hundreds of thousands of diameter fetal atoms. Cool. Clusters of appear billions of years. Interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. So second paragraph basically says sun probably from a cluster because of nickel. Okay, third paragraph. Hypothesis to explain puzzling levels of heavy elements in the sun. Yeah, that makes sense. The odd-skewed orbits and comets also suggest that the sun. Okay, cool. Second paragraph mentions the nickel 60 and the two meteorites in order to support the conclusion that the meteorites date from the formation of the solar system. No, that's not the conclusion. Neither is B. Neither is C. It's E. Yeah, because that's exactly what the whole thing's about. Yes. To support the claim that a supernova once exploded near the sun, passage mentions that, well, they mention a lot of stuff. So let's see if I can actually find that specifically. Where was it? Well, let me just read these and see if I remember. Our sun was born in a particularly large cluster of stars packed close together. No, it's the other way around. I think that's what's the other one. The levels of heavy elements in the sun are unusually high, given how far it was from the galactic sun it was born. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's not see. It's either B or D, but I think it's B. I'm not really loving this passage, so I'm just going to try to go quickly through it. It can be inferred from the passage that if the hypothesis about the sun's origins is correct, then most of the sun's siblings probably are somewhere far away, right? So let's see if they say that. Oh, okay. So I have to think about it. Something else. Have more heavy elements than is normal for stars born so far from the galactic center. Oh, I think that's correct. But let me just read the other ones. Are surrounded by comets and meteorites with odd skewed orbits. Oh, maybe. The identified as crowded cluster. I don't know. Hey, whatever. That's the one I'm least sure about. So I'm just going to say next and move on. So how am I doing on time? Hey, 35 minutes. All right. Doing better than last time. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's go. Oh, I have another one about these. Okay. Oh, it's main purpose. Phew, thank you. Main purpose is to present evidence that our sun was born in a cluster of stars that has since dispersed. Yes, thank you. B, final answer. I was waiting for that question because I knew the answer to it. Okay, finally, epidemiologists, study of residents in 106 of our nation's cities found that on average, the incidence of cardiovascular disease was significantly higher in residents of the cities whose air was more polluted with soot particles. Interesting. Okay. This shows that reducing soot pollution in those cities would lower the risk. I mean, that's a correlation causation error for one thing, but I don't know if that's the issue. So it would weaken if I knew that cardiovascular disease didn't lead to pollution. Although, I mean, I can't imagine that being the case. So it's probably something else, but let's look at the. Oh, and by the way, the conclusion is the second sentence. So I want to weaken that second sentence. All right, so a high proportion of residents in those cities. Reducing A feels like something that GMAT might put as the answer, but I don't fully understand it. So let me read the other ones. Study failed to measure the incidence of cardiovascular disease in rural areas where there is little or no solution. Oh. No, but little or no, that doesn't matter. That's the wrong answer. On average, among the 116 cities, the residents of cities whose air has less pollution have diets much less likely to cause cardiovascular disease. Yeah, that's the answer. Let me just read the other ones. After SIP pollution, one city was trapped, reduced. Yeah, but one city we don't care. Reducing SIP pollution would also involve, yeah, it doesn't matter. C is the answer. Let's go. Historians create ideas we call history. Oh, and this is, by the way, a draw a conclusion question. I'm going to now move on to my second page of scratch paper, by the way. I should have done this before, but we are now on number 8. Historians create ideas we call history, which are derived from an order existing in the real world of historical fact. Since the patterns discovered in that world depend in part on the aims of the investigator, historical periods will tend to be defined in incompatible ways by historians with different interests. Sure. Thus, insofar as the aims of historians of music, literature, and poetry are different, it cannot be assumed that their histories are the same, right? So like music history might be different from painting history. I think that's where they're going with this, but let's see. Real world fact, A is wrong. It counts these historians in there. No, B is wrong. Periods of artistic style delineated. Yeah, that's kind of what I said. Let's just check D&E. The historical patterns defined by these historians will differ appreciably. Oh, wait. Oh, it cannot be assumed that the historical patterns will differ appreciably. No, it can be assumed that those that they will differ. It cannot be assumed that there are any facts from which patterns of artistic style may be derived. No, it can be assumed. That's a sneaky one. I think D is a trap answer for people who don't read the part before the blank. But I think it's C. All right. Oh, more reading comp. Let's go. Primary purpose question. Okay. Major focus of modern evolutionary ecology. It's the study of coevolution. Investigating interactions between organisms. Cool. I already like this bit. The most remarkable coevolutionary interactions is between various species of heliconius butterflies and passiflora vines. So the butterflies lay the eggs on the vines, select only the newest, most tender shoots. Cool. Caterpillars. Oh, that's okay. So they stop reproducing. So there's a defense mechanism. What is it? What are the factors? Oh, smart. So this plant learns to pretend to have leaves of different species. Oh, cool. So it's like this back and forth game. Because the caterpillars of some heliconus species eat the eggs of other heliconus species. Oh, those spots. egg mimicry. That's nuts. Okay, primary purpose of this passage is to let me just go through this quickly. A, no. B, that's mentioned, but it's not the primary purpose. C, explore. Yes, but let me check the others. D, give an overview of COVID. No, no, that's too broad. Argue that the only species of passiflora vines to survive are those that adapt. No, it's C. The following best describes the function. So that third paragraph was another way in which the vines have responded to the butterflies. But let's see if that's an answer. Answer the question posed at the beginning of the passage. No. Some examples given in the passage. Nope. To provide an additional example of an adaptation that indicates a coevolutionary. Yes, but let's check the others. To outline the steps taken in a research project to study coevolutionary relationships. No. To propose further research into the coevolutionary relationships. No. A lot of C answers. And C is again the correct answer. Passiflora leaf chemistry is mentioned in the passage as a characteristic that so where did they mention leaf chemistry? That was in the second paragraph, right? Let me just find it. Yeah, since heliconics butterflies have developed the ability to recognize other passiflora characteristics, including leaf chemistry. Okay, so passiflora leaf chemistry is mentioned in the passage as a characteristic that the butterflies can figure out, basically. But it doesn't deter them, it actually encourages them. Well, I don't know, maybe A, but I don't think that's right. Developed recently, no. Represents successful adaptive strategy. I don't know, it's more about the butterflies there. It's likely no. E, yes, helps the butterflies locate the vines. Exactly. Cool. Final answer. And let's check how we're doing on time, because that was question 11. Sweet. 1.5 minutes ahead. Let's see if I can use it. Ooh. Oh, another one about this passage. Great. Which following statements about the coevolutionary relationship between passiflora vines and heliconics butterflies would the author of the passage be most likely to agree? Well, eventually, no. It's the back and forth. It has ensured the passiflora species will survive longer than heliconics species. No. Again, it's back and forth. Probably in because no, it's going to keep going forever and ever. It has been more thoroughly studied than any other. That's a bold claim. It's too extreme. So I hope it's E. It's a dynamic continuing process that may produce further variations. You betcha. I love this passage so much. I want every passage to be like it. But sadly, we have to do something else now. Okay, which following most logically completes the reasoning? Okay, so I don't immediately know what type of question this is since it's fill in the blank, so let me just read it. An archaeological site can be excavated only once. True, and many sites excavated in the past would have yielded far more information if they had been excavated, using current technologies. These considerations have led some to argue that sites that could yield valuable information should not be excavated now. Oh, interesting. So insofar as technological progress is unlike sought, consistently following this recommendation over time would basically mean we never get any archaeological information. So there's got to be an answer choice. It's something like that. Let's see. Maximize the archaeological. Yeah, let's be. Let me just read the others, make sure I'm not missing anything. sites, continues to increase. No. Yeah, it's B. Because that's what I said. All right. Next question. Oh, I should write my problems. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, solar radiation, a leading cause of skin cancer. In evaluating the hypothesis, okay, so this is an evaluate the argument question. So typical assumption failing. Let's see. Solar radiation is the leading cause of skin cancer. In Britain, skin cancer is more common on the right side of the face than on. Oh, is this a driving thing? Yeah, okay. So the conclusion, what they call it the hypothesis, but it's really the conclusion, is that the difference is because of driving. And, you know, in Britain, they sit on a different side. So I would like to know whether, I mean, one of the problems with this argument is that there's no sun in Britain. Sorry if there are any British people here. But there might be some other stuff. Like, do they do other stuff on that side as well besides driving? You know, are there any other differences? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. So let's read the answer choices. A, B, C, D, E. Many people in Britain who have never driven a car develops. I don't love that one. I'm going to put a question mark there. Drivers in Britain spend more time driving during daylight hours than drivers. That I like more. But let's see. People in Britain who rarely drive. I actually don't love B because it doesn't explain the left-right. I don't know. Let me come back to it. People in Britain who rarely drive or ride in cars are as likely to have skin cancer. Ooh, yes. I like C even more. Most people in Britain who yeah, C. Cool. More reading comment. Ooh, this one's short. I like that. According to the technocentric approach, the model that shaped the early stages of the computerization of work. Oh, okay. So I think that means we put a computer on your desk and you sit there and tap away. The implementation of technology in the workplace is primarily a technical issue. The goal of technological change is to increase, yeah. The design of technology is the responsibility of computer specialists. Okay. But there are problems. For example, in the banking industry, people were sad sitting at their computers, and they were not productive. In addition, current global economy has rendered obsolete the traditional model of efficiency. Oh, yeah? Success is now founded not on mass production and traditional workplace structures, but on decentralized decision making. Okay, so like if people are all at their computers, they're like too focused in, where it would be better to like actually talk to people. Thus, the organization-centered approach to technological change is generally preferable. According to this approach, worker participation is vital. People who actually do the work to be automated are seen as a crucial source of information, yes, during technological implementation. Though the organization-centered approach is based on sometimes faulty assumption that workers and managers share a consensus about goals and interests, it can lead to better outcomes. Okay, so the passage suggests which of the following about the traditional model of efficiency mentioned in the highlight text. It continues to be used. Oh, wait. although they say that sentence in the past tense. So I don't know. It's not A. I wonder about B, but let's read the others. It evaluates efficiencies and standards of mass production. Did they say that? Maybe C. Maybe Object the division of workers and managers. It's definitely not E because that's not the reason it's outmoded. And it didn't prompt the division of workers and managers. So it's either B or C. I think it's B because no, it's C because right after that they say success is now founded not on mass production. Yeah. So that implies that it was before. So I think it's C. I'm not too sure about that one, but we might return to it later, but I don't think I'll have time. Passage suggests that proponents of the organization-centered approach would be most likely to offer which the following explanations for the problem noted in the banking industry. Okay, so the problem noted in the banking industry was that computerization decreased employee morale and did not increase productivity. Why? Because yeah, A, the process of implementing new technology failed to include adequate worker participation. Because don't they say that down at the bottom? I don't want to go find the answer because I kind of remember that. I'm pretty sure it's A. Passage mentions all of, oh, I hate these except questions. I'm just going to go on memory first. And then if there is more than one that I can't remember being there, I'll check. Passage mentions all of the following as disadvantages of the technocentric approach, except it is based on the traditional model of efficiency. Yes, that was mentioned. It can have a negative effect on employees' attitudes. Yes, that was mentioned because the banking example. It relies on decentralized decision-making within a company. No, I don't think that's true. It does not take into account the global economy. It's either C or D, but I think it's C. Did they mention the global economy? I'm just going to C. I want to be done with this. And it's going to take me too long to go find that evidence. Okay, so we are through. Do I have 13 minutes left? Yes. I bought myself 2 extra minutes. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Let's do this. Teacher, among 30, which of the following most accurately restates the conclusion? Ooh, that's a weird question. Okay, let's read it. Among 30 nations with comparable levels of economic development, nation X ranks 28th. Well, that's not great already. So here's nation X. And the proportion of college students who get a degree in science. Okay, undoubtedly the reason is that most of the nation's secondary school science teachers do not have a science degree. That second sentence is the conclusion, because what follows is additional evidence to support that. But undoubtedly the reason is that most of the nation's secondary school science teachers do not have a science degree. Have a science degree. That second sentence is the conclusion, because what follows is additional evidence to support that. But undoubtedly the reason is that most of the nation's secondary school science teachers do not have a science degree. Undoubtedly the reason is that most of the nation's secondary school science teachers do not have a science degree. Okay, so let's read the answer choices. Nation X has a lower proportion of college students. No, that restates a different sentence. Most secondary school science teachers in Nation X lack science degrees. Well, the first part is good. It's that second half of the sentence that I don't love, so I'm going to put a question right there. Inspired and knowledgeable secondary school science teachers can encourage their students to get a degree in science in college. I mean, that would support the conclusion, but I don't think it's a restatement of the conclusion. It might be right, but let's read the others. Isn't it only relatively? Oh, yeah, I think D is correct. The reason that only a relatively low proportion of college students in Nation X. That's what it said, right? Yeah, D. Cool. That's the closest. So that's a weird question. I don't know that. Have I seen one of those? Oh, well, we'll talk about it. The economist's argument is most vulnerable to criticism. Okay, so this is a weekend question. Oh, economist, a symptom of the incipient decline. Wow, this is negative. The society is its inability to produce what its own citizens regard as necessary for a reasonably prosperous life. Yeah, okay, but when corporations in a given society extend their manufacturing operations to other countries, it's because of greater profitability. Huh. Clearly, then, a society whose businesses enthusiastically embrace the outsourcing of its manufacturing operations is not beginning to decline. Well, I mean, I already disagree with that on the grounds of two things. What if businesses go global because domestic workers are unhappy? You know what I mean? Like, in other words, what if those two things are related to each other? And then also, what if, I think there are other problems, but let me look at the answer choices. I think there's a lot going on here. My scratch paper is a mess, sorry. The economist's argument, blah, blah, it assumes that the mere absence of one of the symptoms of social decline indicates that social decline is not occurring. Yeah, I mean, kind of. I like A okay, but let me read the others. It fails to consider what citizens, not B, takes for granted that profits of overseas manufacturing operations. No, that's too in the weeds. It has nothing to do with the conclusion. It assumes that a society within which many manufacturing operations cannot not to, or looks the possibility that economic factors. Ooh, wait, it might be E. Overlooks the possibility that economic factors are the principal contributors to the flourishing. Yes, it's E. I like that better. Ooh, more reading comp. How many questions do I have left? Okay, so I'm going to get 4 questions probably on this passage. Yeah, let's read carefully. Bigger cities need more infrastructure than smaller ones, but how much more? For instance, among cities in the economically most developed countries, the number of service stations varies, not in direct proportion to the population, but to a far smaller number obtainable by a precise formula applied to the population. Wait, what? On cities? Oh, okay. So it's not direct proportion, but it has something to do with it. Okay, this implies that given a city's population, we can predict how many service stations the city needs. Cool. Oh, I get it. Okay, so they're saying, yeah, it's not like a direct scale. It's like maybe a curve or something. Okay, the bigger the city, the fewer gas stations need per 1,000 people. Yeah, same scaling relationship holds for certain other. Got it. Sweet. Second paragraph. Interestingly, a similar scaling relationship occurs among organisms. Oh, really? Outside their host organisms, almost all mammal cells have similar rates of energy use. Oh, but in big animals, they need less energy. Really? That's crazy. Kleber's law indicates that they use this significantly slower rate than body. Huh. And it's like the city formula. Okay. So physicist Jeffrey West has argued that a scaling relationship, somewhat like Kleber's, is theoretically likely in systems using a network of branching tubes to convey. Oh, okay. So that he's trying to like resolve this, that physicist is. Okay. Primary purpose of the passage is to I'm going off the rails with my scratch paper, sorry, but we're the 4 questions left. Describe a series of stages in the development of knowledge about a certain type of pattern. I don't think it's about the development of knowledge. That's close, but I don't think that's it. Make a general point about the significance of relative size and social organization. It's not just social. Make a case for the use of mathematics. No, that's too broad. Describe and illustrate a pattern found in diverse phenomena like cities or whatever. Final answer D. I don't need to read E. That's good. Which of following? Okay. So critical reasoning is sneaking into our reading comp. We want to draw a conclusion. Body size is not the main determinant of a mammal's daily calorie needs. Daily calorie needs. Did they say anything about that? No, because they're just talking about the cells. That's sneaky, but I don't think it's A. Total daily calorie needs. Okay, wait, so they're talking a lot about calories. Did they mention calories? No. Total daily calorie needs population of small animals. Yes, so again, we don't know that. Kleber's law does not characterize changes. Thank you. Kleber's law does not characterize changes in mammals' energy needs, as those needs change with increases in level of activity. Whatever, I move on. Small mammals' circulatory systems deliver energy nutrients slowly into larger mammals' circulatory systems. No, larger ecosystem is. Okay, I think it's C because I don't understand because I think the others are wrong and I don't understand C, so it's probably that. We'll go back to that if we need to. The primary purpose of the passage's discussion of elephant cells and mouse cells is to. Where did they discuss that? Oh yeah, here. So they were pointing out that elephant cells need less energy. So that was an example of Kleber's law, not an exception to Kleber's law. So A is out. Extend the application of an idea about food energy needs. Nope, not B. illustrate a general principle regarding the relationship between the functioning of organisms and their relative size. Yes, I like that. Let me just read the others. Clarify a point made earlier in the passage about the ranges. No. Suggesting universal applicability method. Oh, wait. Maybe E, but I don't think so. No, because they mention that in order to illustrate it, not to suggest anything. So C is the answer. I'm happy with that. Ooh, I thought I was going to get. Oh, I'm sad. I liked that passage. Okay, which of the following is a logical flaw? So we've got a weekend question. Last one. Film critics argument. The essential mark of a great film is that it broadens the psychological horizons of its audience. Well, that's a bold claim, but fine. The usual way to do this is to call into question some of the values or assumptions that the audience members have long taken for granted. Thus, a film that makes the viewer uncomfortable is most likely a great one, since it is inevitably discomforting to have one's core beliefs challenged. Okay, so I think the argument is that a film that makes the viewer uncomfortable is most likely a great one. The issue that I have with that is that it's not true, because it might just make you uncomfortable, right? So we're assuming that there's like no other reason you might be uncomfortable rather than having your beliefs questioned. So I know that's going to be the answer. Let's just find it. A, B, C, D, E. Confuse the clan. Yeah, I think it's A, but overlooks possibility. Oh no, maybe it's not. Overlooks possibility that their ways broaden. No, it doesn't do that. B, that's tricky. B might be a trap. It takes for granted that is appropriate. Yeah, no, appropriate or not appropriate is not at issue. No, it doesn't do that. Fails to adequately address the possibility of use. No, yeah, so it's A. They say that in a really weird way, but that A essentially says what I say. Yeah, and that's the last question. Woo! All right. What do I don't know. I don't need to go back to anything. I'm tired of doing this test, and I don't even know what I would go back to. I don't have enough time to do anything.
And so I have a
Stacey,
question for you. Would you
yeah,
just sit here and let the time run out so that you can get a little bit of an extra break, or would
I
you?
probably would. Yeah, I would just kind of stretch out.
Yeah.
And then my break is coming up anyway, because I usually do the break after the second section. So do I need to go back to anything, Stacey, for you to screenshot?
I got all the screenshots. We're
You
good.
got it. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I'm just going to I'll just save it for later so we have a little wiggle room next time we start it up.
Perfect.
And stop my screen sharing. Cool.
And then let me get, okay, so toss in, I tossed some things in the chat as you were working, Ryan. I don't know if you'll.
Oh, yeah,
I thought the plant mimicking the eggs on the leaves, that was so cool.
Right? Yeah, that was my favorite reading comp passage.
Yeah. I also loved how much here are the couple things that I loved about what you did. And everyone else, toss your questions or your thoughts into the chat. Let us know what you're thinking. So I loved how you kept talking about what you liked and didn't like. And really like use that, right? So when you see a passage that you don't like, yeah, go ahead and answer the questions. But then if you get a question that you don't like on top of a passage that you don't like, that's a great opportunity to just guess and move on. And then lean into it when you really do like it. Your brain's going to understand and remember better. And you didn't take as many notes on the stuff that you liked because you were engaged in that more. So you were able to do it, all of that kind of stuff. So that was awesome. I also really liked how every time the question came on the screen, you were immediately like, okay, what kind of question is this? What kind of question is this? Because that oriented you, and we could see through the way that you were thinking through the questions, like it oriented you to, what am I trying to answer here? What's the point of this question? That was super useful. It was also really interesting to listen to you as you went through the answer choices in terms of the confidence level or lack of, depending on the specific question, right? But one of the things that you did consistently that I thought was awesome was there were times when you were able to articulate to yourself before you went to the answer choices that, oh, I think the answer is going to be something like this. And on those, you were like fast through the answers and really confident in the answers and whatever, like it really helped you. So taking that extra, 10, 15 seconds, just stop and be like, okay, what do I think this is? Where you could, you can't always do that. But where you could, that really helped to then speed up and make the process easier as you went through the answer choices. And I think what Ryan was doing there, I highly recommend that everybody try to do. You cannot always try to anticipate the answer, but anytime that you can, it's super, super useful to take that little bit of time to do that before you go to the answer choices.
I want to mention something about that too. Yeah, that's something I harp on in my class. And there's also a type of question, you might have heard me mention it, where I'm like, there's so many things that could be a flaw in this argument that I just don't know where they're going to go with it.
Yeah.
So like, that's the other thing too, is like, sometimes like you can get caught in that, right? But at least you get started thinking about it. And then maybe that's not the answer, but I feel like that process still helps, even if it's not what you predicted.
Even if it
Yeah.
turns out to be something else. And also I think it, like for me anyway, it helps also to realize like, oh, I don't know what this is. I'm actually going to be a little bit quicker to let go if I'm then getting tangled up in the answer choices because I couldn't anticipate it. I'm not totally sure what's going on. I'm not super comfortable with whatever this material is. Great. All of those are good reasons to help me go, forget it. I'm out. Questions about any particular questions or anything that you saw Brian do? Are there any questions you want us to go back to? I've got them all on a slideshow. Here, I'm going to share my screen and let's just start to scroll through them all. And then maybe that will also jog memory for people who have questions about them. Hold on one second. Oops, I forgot to make it.
It might jog my memory too. I've completely forgotten the
several
first
of the
5
questions that you
questions.
saw, I saw when I took a practice test like a month ago. So there was one, by the way, on which I disagree with your answer.
It's fine.
All right, so here was the first question, a critical reasoning question. Got your little scratch notes there, and then the answer that you ended up choosing. Anybody have questions about this one? Ryan, do you have anything you want to say about this one?
Hold on. I just need to rearrange some windows here. Okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, I made a little bit of a leap here because the sales calls in person thing, I figured that like, sales calls not in person would have less nonverbal communication. I thought that was a safe leap to make, but I'm not sure. And if I'm wrong, then I got the wrong answer.
Yeah, I almost feel like this question was maybe written 10 years ago because a sales call not in person would normally be like on the phone, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Now it would be a Zoom call.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
There.
All right, let's go take a look at our next one. Another critical reasoning one here.
All right, which one's this?
So you were debating B when you first went through it, but then you got to D and you liked D.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so only the largest countries are able oh no, a company with a low ranking in research spending may have better financial performance. Yeah, so this is one of those where like D is really boring and dry, but technically correct, right? It's the worst kind of correct, technically correct.
I'm gonna call out because you mentioned this a couple times. You're like they stated it directly, but I want to call out what they did because I thought they did this really in a subtle way. I was like I kind of like this question just from a content creation standpoint.
Yeah.
They're saying basically that these two things have no correlation. That how much we spent, some companies spent on research has no correlation with how well they did financially. And so this is essentially a way of restating that where you could have a low ranking in research and you could have a high ranking in financial performance because there is no correlation between those two things.
Yeah, and I'll just mention this is one of those things we talk about in class all the time. When you have a draw a conclusion question, you have to sort of switch your brain away from, oh, I want something new and unexpected. And you have to switch it to, I want something dry and boring that they actually said.
Yes, another way of stating something that they literally actually said. Cool. Then we had this passage.
I hated this passage so much. I still don't know what it's about. I don't understand that thing about I understand the gist is that the sun was originally part of a group of stars that scattered away. It wasn't just on its lonesome for this reason, and this reason. How those reasons lead me to believe that the sun eventually, was part of a cluster, I have no idea how any of that works, and I did my best given my lack of understanding. That's what I'll say about this.
Right. Well, it's both. It's right. It's like you didn't understand it, but also you didn't really like this topic. So, and again, it's, you can't get through the test just being like, oh, I don't like this topic next for everything. But, the GMAT is not about trying to get every single question right. You're trying to get as many questions right as you can, sure, in a reasonable amount of time, but you're still going to get a number of questions wrong because it's an adaptive test, and that's how adaptive tests work. So you actually are kind of looking for the opportunities to be like, oh, look, I don't care about this one. Next, like, let's go to the next question. All right. Speaking of next, here is the next question. You're between B and D on this one.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to have much useful to say in this passage. I'm going to be honest. So, Stacey,
does anyone have any questions about this passage?
If you saw this one, please feel free.
Oh, I don't remember now. I was half listening to you as you solved, but also taking screenshots and setting up the slides. So
yeah, we can come back to this later if you want. But I think for me to read it and understand it and like actually say something smart it would take more time than we have.
What about this one? This one was ultimately kind of a guess. You chose A because you said basically it was the least bad, but you weren't super confident in this.
Oh yeah. So this might have been an educated guess. It can be inferred from the passage that so there were some answer choices that I got rid of here because they just didn't make sense in real life. And for this particular question, I feel like, whatever the answer is should make some sort of real world sense. I thought B was too close to the language that they used in the passage. I thought that C doesn't make sense, was one of those I was talking about that doesn't make sense. And I think D isn't true, right? Like those sun siblings didn't remain crowded within a cluster. That's the point.
They disperse.
Yeah. So I was like, it's probably A or E.
All right. Well, we'll see what that is once you reveal your test.
Yeah. And also, if I'm 50-50 on a question like that, like I'm really happy actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that point too, the other thing I'll say is when I'm down to 2 answers, I will look at each of those 2 answers one more time. I'll compare them against each other, but I have learned the hard way that I will not go back and forth between those last 2 answers, because what ends up happening there is you spend like a minute and a half doing that, and then you pick whichever one you were the most confident on like a minute and a half ago. So it just wastes time and it doesn't do anything for you. So yeah. And then you were happy to get this one because you already knew it. You had already articulated yourself.
Yeah. Where was my main purpose question? I was looking for it the whole time. So this one I'm pretty sure I got. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Then back to critical reasoning.
Trying to get my camera to focus on me. There we go. Logitech. Okay. What is this one? Oh yeah. So like this seems like a correlation causation issue, where soot pollution and cardiovascular disease go hand in hand. But there are a lot of reasons that could be, right? Like maybe it's soot pollution is actually causing the cardiovascular disease, but maybe something about living in a city where, people have cardiovascular disease. Like, here's an example. Maybe people eat a lot of beef in that city, and so they have cardiovascular disease, but maybe that's because beef is produced there, and so there's a lot of soot from the beef production plants or whatever. I don't think that's true, but you get the idea.
There might be some third thing basically that's causing both of these things to happen.
Yeah, and I think, isn't that what C basically said? That there's some other reason.
The residents of the ones who have less soot pollution have diets less likely to cause cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, so it's their diet, not the soot pollution, right? If I'm understanding that correctly.
Again, I didn't read the whole thing through, so.
Okay, well that's my thinking. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but.
Yeah. Okay. What about this one?
Uh,
Oh yeah, I remember this one, that language with the cannot versus can. I got this one too on my practice test that I took like a month ago. I remember
oh
this
yeah,
one.
yeah. So okay, so this is a fill in the blank, and it's super important to read the part before the blank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this one was hard for me too, because sometimes on the fill in the blank I could be like, oh, that's a strengthened question or that's a weakened question. And I can treat it like I always do. This one, I couldn't categorize it. You know what I mean? And so I
Well,
actually
because
had to like,
it's an assumption question, but it's a cannot, it's a negative, right? It's like what can
yeah.
we assume?
Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
had to actually like read that whole sentence for each answer
To
choice, right?
understand.
It
Yeah.
cannot be assumed that A. It cannot
Yeah.
be assumed that B, and that's what helped me solve it. So
Right. And you were tempted by D, and then we're like, oh, wait. It doesn't
yeah,
say it can be assumed. It says it cannot be assumed.
yeah,
That trap, they're definitely setting that trap on this
yeah.
question for sure. And we've got a question in the chat.
No, question: couldn't the accounts be arbitrary because it depends on the aim of the historians? Um,
And the arbitrary answer choice is B.
okay. Thus insofar. Um, they could be arbitrary, but B goes too far and says they're definitely arbitrary. Um, so yeah, I actually agree with that. The accounts could be arbitrary, but I don't think we I don't think they're definitely arbitrary, right? Because B says it cannot be assumed that the accounts of these historians will ever be anything but arbitrary, right? That's a bridge too far.
And that language there, right, is also confusing.
Yeah.
It's easier to just say the will always be arbitrary. But
Yeah.
that's not what they said. They said it in a way that's confusing. This
Yeah.
is a tough question.
I
Just
wonder, maybe they said that to try to be helpful, to like make it really super dramatic over the top. I don't know. Maybe that's the GMAT trying to be nice to us, but I agree.
I
It's
doubt it. I think they were setting a trap.
that's fair.
All right. Our next one.
Oh, I loved this passage. This is my favorite.
This was a fun passage. Who doesn't
Yeah.
like butterflies? Come on.
Yeah. Butterflies and leaves and how they like adapt and adapt and adapt and
Yeah,
adapt. That's
that
cool.
was pretty cool. Anything else you want to say about this question besides the fact that you liked it?
That helped a lot. I also because like I don't know, I like the outdoors. I'm a good Californian. I go to the redwood forest all the time. So like I'm always like looking at plants, and we have tons of butterflies around here. And so like for me, this passage was very like visually vivid. Like I can actually picture the whole thing in my
Okay.
mind.
What do you
And
do when you get a passage that's on a topic that you just really, like the other passage or other topics that you're just really not a fan of?
That's a good question. I try to think of someone who would be a fan of it and put myself in their shoes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't have any friends who are astronomers. You know what I mean? But that's what I would try to do if I did. I'd be like, oh, my buddy, so
So
and
and so is
so.
interested in whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to tell him about this. And then so I
That's what
would
I do
try to
too.
remember it on their behalf.
Yeah, that's what I do too. In fact, I actually have certain pieces because I know before I go into the test the topics that I don't like. I like the science stuff. I was a science major, but I'm not a fan of the I don't know, when they get super business technical, like that other one. I got that passage too about the technological, whatever it was. I
Oh,
can't remember now. I hated
I
that
didn't
one.
mind that so much. But
I hated that one. So I actually, I know the topics already that I'm not a fan of, and I
yeah,
already have my people in mind who
yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay, I know so and so likes this. And literally what I do is it's like, oh, imagine you saw something online and for some reason there was an inability to just send them the link directly to the article.
yeah,
But I'm going to see them later on and I know that they're super interested in this. So I want to remember like the basics to be able to tell them, oh, I saw this thing that you
yeah,
would be really interested in.
yeah,
And it's a way to kind of fool myself for the next 6 to 8 minutes
yeah.
into paying attention before I can forget about it again. What about this one?
Okay, so this was what's the function of a paragraph? And so this is another one I should mention, like a good first read really helps with this type of question as well. Even though they've highlighted a specific passage, I don't think I really looked back at the passage. Did I? I
You
can't
kind of
quite
glanced at
remember.
it briefly, and then you were like, okay, third paragraph. And then you articulated out loud what the third paragraph, like why they had the third paragraph there.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
mean,
then you went straight to the answers.
yeah, this question was basically answered in my first read because I thought the third paragraph was interesting in that it switched like the trajectory really quickly, right? We'd been talking about variations in leaf shape or whatever, and then all of a sudden we were talking about eggs. And so that got me interested on my first read through. And I'm like, oh, this is yet another way in which
This new
they've
thing.
adapted that's different from what we've talked about.
Yeah.
And so I was like registered it that way in my mind. And so C was close enough to that I didn't really have to read it. Also, I like to save time when I can. Like if I'm pretty sure that an answer is right like that, I will sometimes glance at the other ones, but like I want to keep it moving, and that paid off actually because I mean a minute is not a huge cushion.
Yeah, I think you had about 50 seconds when you finished.
Yeah, so
Yeah. So, and by the way, for everyone, you might have noticed the time management technique that Ryan was using. I'll remind me later and I'll grab the link to send you to the article. But what he's using is essentially something where you split the section up into blocks of questions and then you have a certain amount of time. And so basically you finish a block and you check the time to see, okay, how am I on time? Do I need to adjust? Do I need to guess on a couple of questions to catch up? And that time management strategy, basically has you finishing, or the goal is to finish 2 minutes early. And that's to do two things, basically. One is it provides a little bit of buffer. So if you do find yourself getting a little bit behind, it's okay. You've got that extra 2 minutes. The test isn't going to end on you. And then if you do manage to have that 2 minutes left over, there are multiple ways you can use it. So for example, you could go back to questions that you've bookmarked, but you could also give yourself a 2-minute mini break in the middle of the test. You can't get up from your seat, but you can, roll your neck around and stretch out and just kind of loosen yourself up again before you move on to the next section.
Since we're talking about that, I didn't say it out loud, but I did make a conscious decision that I was gonna like take my time with the last 6 questions because I did know I had like 2 extra minutes to play with.
Buffer, right?
Yeah, so I wasn't super
like extra,
concerned.
right?
Yeah, I wasn't super concerned with finishing with 2 minutes left on the clock because I figured like getting those last few questions right was probably going to be better for me than being able to return to questions since I didn't have like a question that jumped out at me as like, oh, I need to go back and fix that one.
Okay.
If I had a question where like I answered it B and then all of a sudden like I was like, oh, that's A, then I probably would have wanted to save more time at the end. So like,
You have time to go back and find it again.
yeah, you kind of want to be aware at the end of where you're at.
And we're getting a question in the QA, not in the chat.
Mhm.
So just take a look at that. It's question 7. So let's finish off this passage. Then we'll bop back to question 7 and then we'll keep going on this test.
Cool.
So, oh no, sorry. No. Yeah. So still this passage. Anything on this one that you want to talk about?
Oh, this is, you just have to, it's a lookup. You actually do have to look at, where did they talk about leaf chemistry? What was the context, unless you
Just go
happen to
find it.
remember it. Yeah, but at that point, like, yeah, again, a good first read should get you the answer here.
Right. Okay. And this one?
Oh, yeah. So basically, I treated this like I've read the passage now, which would I agree with? So that's again the benefit to having a passage that you like and understand. But yeah, it did take me a while because at first I was like, oh, I don't love this. But then once I got to E, I was like, oh yeah, that's the answer.
As soon as you saw it, you knew.
Yeah, sometimes it's weird when E is the right answer. You start to second guess yourself. But
yeah, because you haven't gotten there yet. I think that's the last one with this passage. Okay, so let me bop back to question 7 that we just got this thing.
And I'm looking
so this is question 7. And someone's asking, can you explain why the answer that talks about lower pollution but a higher number of cardiovascular diseases is wrong?
One?
And which answer letter is that?
I also don't know that it is wrong.
Talks about what, right? We don't know for sure. Lower pollution but higher cardiovascular. Would that be answer E, I think? Reducing pollution and contributes more.
Reducing SIP pollution would also involve reducing several other forms of air pollution that contribute. That would strengthen the argument, not
Oh, no,
weaken.
sorry, it's answer D. Answer D,
Okay.
sorry.
After
After SIP
SIP
pollution was dramatically reduced.
Oh, because they just said one city. Like, I don't care about one city. I care about this city.
Okay.
So,
One city, and in particular, the study was about 116 of our
Yeah.
nation's cities.
yeah. So that
So
one
one
city
city is
might
not
be an
enough.
outlier. That's,
Right.
That's not enough to sway my viewpoint.
Okay. Let us know if you have any other questions about that one.
That's also, by the way, a classic GMAT trap is, hey, but what about this one example over here?
Because there's an exception, and it's like, that's
Yeah.
nice, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the overall trend is wrong.
Yeah. So it helps to see that trap before.
Okay, question 13 back here. So this one, you were able to predict the answer before you went to the answer choices, and you were confident when you found it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the logic that they gave had to lead to the idea that you would basically never be able to have another archaeological dig.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They really went out of their way to set that up too, which I
What
thought
about
was
this
interesting.
one? Oh, yeah, so this was the skin cancer and the driving one.
Oh, yes. Okay, so this is the one where I was like, there's so many things that the answer could be that I just don't know.
Yeah.
So I picked C. People in Britain who rarely drive or ride in cars are as likely to have skin cancer on the right side. Yeah, because if the people that don't drive don't have this issue, then we know it's driving, right?
And
But
if people do,
but if the people that don't drive also have this issue with the same frequency, then it must have nothing to do with driving. There must be
right, there's some other
factor.
reason why,
Yeah.
for some
So
reason, the British.
I was a little surprised by C because I thought they were actually going to give me what that other factor was. C is tricky because it's enough to just say there must be some other factor.
There's something else, right?
Yeah, but that is the answer. I'm more confident actually now reading it a second time.
Okay. This passage, the technocentric versus organization.
Yeah. So my understanding of this passage was basically that in the early days of like putting office drones in front of computers, the idea was that you have a super powerful computer, and the more powerful your computer,
that'll make you more productive.
Yeah, the better your office drone will be. And so therefore the technocentric approach is we should make engineers do lots of work to get really powerful computers in the hands of these people, and don't bother talking to the people. That doesn't matter. Just get them a
Finding out
powerful
whether this
computer.
actually helps them do their jobs or anything.
Yeah. Whereas the organization-centered approach says, hey, when you design a computer, you should actually talk to the people who are using it and their managers.
Or anything else, like, does somebody actually need a computer? Or do they, whatever, do they need other tools, etc.?
Yeah.
On this one, you were going back and forth between B and C.
Mm-hmm.
You ultimately chose C, but you were kind of like, I'm not totally sure why, but whatever, that's fine. The issue, or not the issue, but the source thing was right after this semicolon.
Yeah, didn't I eventually settle on that?
You eventually picked answer C, but even when you said it, you were like, well, I'm not quite sure, but it seems better to me than B.
Yeah.
So I remember
that's what
that
swayed
note.
me. What you just underlined is exactly it.
Like, this is what it is. So they say it's not, success is not on mass production. Therefore, for the other one, it was on mass production. I thought too, this was interesting because they say success and that turns into efficiency here. It was an interesting, synonym that they were using. It works. It's just not what you normally use as a synonym. And then this one.
Suggests the proponents of the organization-centered approach would most likely offer which following explanations. Oh, yeah. Okay. So first you have to say what problem noted in the banking industry. Weird that there are two problems, right? Because they talk about decreased morale, and then they talk about failure to increase productivity, right? And so then I went down to the second paragraph where they talk about the organization-centered approach. And yeah, they say worker participation is vital. And don't they say one other thing?
They
I
say
guess
that
not.
I mean, it's basically following on from that, right?
Yeah,
You have to talk to them while you're implementing this.
yeah. And so that's why I chose A, is because that's what all the organization
Yeah.
centered approach, they keep talking about worker participation.
Right. That's exactly what the goal is of that approach. The accept question, you were like, I hate accept.
Yeah, so these are always time consuming, right? Because like you have to go one by one, and you
Yeah,
just
you
have
really
to.
have to check each one. I kind of think of these as the math equivalent of Roman numeral questions. They're
Yeah,
basically
exactly.
making you do more work
Yeah, for one question,
for
not fair.
the same amount of potential credit. Yeah.
I will say my strategy on these is always to cross off everything that I just remember and then go back and I think that's what I did here, right?
Yeah, that's what you did here too.
I think I got rid of all but two, and did I
And then
just
you went
guess at
back
that
and
point?
yeah. And I think you then decided you were like, yeah, I don't want to go check on the two. So you went with your gut on the two. I didn't note down which two you narrowed it down to, but yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
still want to go with my gut. I mean, unless you want to talk about it, I don't particularly
yeah,
want to find
my brain
it.
is like, I have on the tip of my brain, what were the two word that you narrowed down to? And I can't remember what it was now. But yes, I also like, and someone saying they thought this one was D. So let's take a look at
Oh,
that.
Allison's in my class. She's probably right. Let's see.
So they're talking about the technocentric approach.
Uh-huh.
Then, so I love this, right? Disadvantages accept.
Yeah.
So four of them, this is what I always have to do in my brain for accept questions. Four of them are disadvantages. And then one, I'm just going to say is not, but it doesn't mean it's an advantage. So I'm not writing down that one is an advantage. It's just not a disadvantage. It could be anything else.
Yeah.
So what's a disadvantage? So, it's the technocentric approach that just one disadvantage is that it's traditional model. One is that it can lower morale. We saw that up here. One is that it can fail to increase, meaning it can decrease productivity. We saw
Yeah,
that over
just
here,
the banking example.
failing to increase productivity.
Yeah.
Okay, so now
Do they
which
talk
ones
about
can you talk it out?
so global economy is mentioned where they say, in addition, the current global economy has rendered obsolete the traditional model of efficiency. But I'm not sure that that is really what D is saying. So maybe D is the answer. Do they talk about the global economy anywhere else?
The other thing I'll just say there too, current global economy versus global economy in general.
Hmm.
I might almost argue, well, this probably did take into account the global economy at the point that it was implemented,
Mhm.
but it
Yeah,
failed to keep up with the current way that things work.
yeah.
And it says it's
And
rendered obsolete the traditional model, which kind of implies that the traditional model once upon a time might have actually been useful.
yeah,
Just
and
not so
then
much anymore.
now that I'm looking at C, I have kind of the same issues that it is kind of discussed, I guess, with the organization-centered approach. Um, right? Because
So success is now founded on not this stuff, but
oh yeah,
on
there we go.
decentralized
Decentralized
decision making.
decision making. Um,
So that's in the technocentric
yeah,
paragraph,
but
but
is it a
it's not
disadvantage?
about the technocentric approach. It's actually laying the groundwork for then talking about the organization centered approach in the next paragraph.
Yeah. So I still think it's C, but I still don't know. I don't know. What is it, Stacey?
I don't know. I don't remember, but I would go with C on this one as well. I really think it is about this, like the technocentric approach. Oh, sorry, but it's disadvantages. I keep forgetting the disadvantages. A disadvantage of a technocentric approach.
Yeah,
But the technocentric approach does not rely on decentralized decision making.
it just happens at the same time as decent.
No,
Yeah, that's a
it
good
in
point.
fact in fact it
I
ignores
see what
decentralized decision making.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
So it's a
Yeah, organizational centered approach takes advantage of
advantage of
decentralized
decentralized decision
decisions.
making, but
Yeah.
it's not a disadvantage. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
this
Now I'm
is
more confident. I
yeah,
think I get it.
this
God,
is
that's hard. That's a hard
that's a
question.
really tricky one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for
Cool.
asking that because you made us dig a little deeper on that one. That one was worth digging deeper on. All right, let me clear all that out. I hate accept questions too. All right, next question.
Oh yeah, have you ever seen one of these before? This was a weird question
This
type,
was
right?
it's a very, I've very occasionally, like once every 5 years, seen a question like this. It's a really unusual question.
Did we call it mimic the argument or something?
Mimic the argument was a little bit different. We literally did, like 10 years ago, we had a category called restate the conclusion. They were probably more common maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah, I can tell you this is
A
the
long time.
first time I've ever seen it in 12 years of teaching.
Yeah.
So there you go. But here it is. So restate the conclusion of the teacher's argument, which is the second sentence. It's weird that most of them are close, but D is like almost exactly what it says word for word.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
picked
the
D.
trap that they're setting basically is, have you identified the right parts of this as the
I was
even the
wondering
conclusion
that. Yeah.
versus
So
the
that,
premises?
yeah, and so like the wrong answer choices are either premises that are there or assumptions that should have been there. Whereas the
Right. Or
correct answer choice
they're
is the
mixing
actual
things up,
conclusion.
like the B that you were tempted by, right? Where it was fine to hear, but the conclusion is not that they also had trouble citing students.
Yeah, I even wrote that on my scratch paper. That's an interesting one too, by the way. I talk about this in my class a lot. Is like the whole answer choice has to be right, and like
Yeah, it's got to be.
sometimes
It's not okay that most of it is.
yeah, sometimes when you
Every
read that first sentence, like you really want it to be the answer because you really want to be done, and you are kind of expecting something like
You're
that,
like,
and so
does it
like
really matter that it's
yeah,
it
it
really
gets hand
matters.
wavy at the end. So
Yeah, it really matters. Where the correct answer does include a premise. It's got the reason that blah 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 before it gets to the conclusion. But this is the right ordering. We've got a premise, it leads to the conclusion, and this is a premise and a conclusion that they said in the argument. So that's it. All right. What about this one? On this one, you were debating A versus E and chose E.
yeah, let's see. Oh yes, this is a weekend question. Yeah, so basically the argument is that just because a business moves all their operations to Japan or wherever, doesn't mean that our nation is in decline, right? And they're saying that because it's just an economic thing, right? It's not, it has nothing to do with
So I'm going to tell you on this one that I disagree with your answer. And I think the reason that we disagree is the way that you just worded what you worded. I think you overlooked something.
Oh, what did I overlay? Just tell me.
So you said that it doesn't mean that it's in decline. And I agree with you that in the real world, that's what I would think. But look at what they actually wrote here.
Not beginning to decline.
Well, isn't it, they're saying they're not saying it's not necessarily in decline. They're saying it's not in decline. As like, if you are enthusiastically embracing the outsourcing, you are not in decline. That's not.
Oh,
do you see it?
So it's A.
So it's A.
Oh,
yeah, sorry. So it's basically saying that it's assumes the mere absence. So if we don't have this symptom, there's not a reason, like the bad reason is not the reason that we're outsourcing, but that doesn't mean that we're not in decline. There are other reasons that the society could be in decline. That's not the only.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it's that when you rephrased that, and you could like, this is why I wanted you to summarize it too. Like even the way that you just summarized it right now, your brain inserted the not necessarily, but that's not what the actual conclusion said. So this is one of the things that we talk about in class all the time. It's so easy for our brains to fall into this, where it's, you gotta go with the conclusion that they gave. You got to be really careful not to be reading into it and come up with like the real world conclusion or what a reasonable person would conclude in the real world.
Yeah.
Because nobody would say this in the real world.
Yeah.
But then there's the trap.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that for sure here.
Yeah. I mean, we've all done that, and we will continue to do it. We're just trying to minimize it as much as possible. What about this one?
Okay. This is the last reading comp. Yeah, this was kind of an interesting one too. I'm glad that I took my time with the first paragraph here, because it paid off to be like,
it was a pretty weird first paragraph.
Yeah, because like I didn't understand where they were going. Are we saying it has nothing to do with population? Are we saying it is tied to population? And then they're like, oh, there's this formula for population. And so I was like, oh, so it must mean like as it goes up, we get more gas stations, but not in the same direction. That actually helped me with the second paragraph, because when they started talking about Kleber's law, I was like, oh, that's why they were talking about that equation. Whereas if I hadn't bothered to dig that deep into it, I don't think I would have connected that law back to the equations that
And
they
so
were
then you might
talking
have
about.
struggled with like, what are these two paragraphs doing next to each other? Like, why are these here?
Yeah, I will also say I'm more inclined to linger on the first paragraph than on subsequent paragraphs, because I feel like a lot of times, right in the first couple of sentences, they give you something that you can latch onto. Not always, but
Kind
I
of
think this,
anchor.
yeah, this is a good example of that. So,
The
I don't know.
context is set typically, not 100% of the time, but like 98% of the time, the context is set in that first paragraph. If
Yeah,
you miss something major in that first paragraph, it makes it tough
yeah,
to get through the rest of it.
yeah. So that was
Here's
just
the
primary
second
focus.
question.
Oh yeah, so this is a draw conclusion question basically, and here you just have to find a premise.
Oh, and this was the one where I didn't write it down, but this was the one where you were like, I don't understand, but all the others are wrong, so it's got to be
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't love this question so much,
So
but
here's the detail.
yeah, Kleber's law, which describes at-rest energy needs, indicates that they increase at a blah 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 blah.
So at rest, his formula is for at rest. Therefore, it's not for when they have increases in level of activity.
Oh yeah,
That's
perfect.
the
Thank you for finding
so
that.
you got it right.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the detail.
It felt like, yeah, I don't know, something about that felt like the right answer. I don't know that
Yeah,
I
your
could
brain
explain it.
somehow picked it up, but yeah, you were in the moment you were like, I don't know, but the others are all wrong. So
Yeah,
that was the connection. They flipped around this idea of at rest to talk about level of activity.
cool. Oh yeah, this one I think was fairly straightforward, right? The whole point of that was to talk about was to like help you understand why they were talking about scaling relationship among organisms, right? And here's an example. Look at this elephant and mouse.
Right.
So
Right. If you got
illustrating the
the idea,
principle.
then it's straightforward. If you got the idea. And then what about this last one about the great films make you uncomfortable thing? Or no, it's the reverse. That if the film makes you uncomfortable, then it's great.
Yeah. So this one, it was really helpful to phrase that before seeing the answer choices. Because basically I was like, wait a second, there are plenty of terrible films that also make you uncomfortable.
For different reasons, yeah.
Yeah. And so just imagine any one of those. And then like that's the flaw in the argument. And A basically says that. It confuses a claim that great films usually have a certain characteristic, i.e., they make you uncomfortable, with a claim that films having that characteristic are likely to be great,
Right.
i.e., if it makes you uncomfortable, it's likely to be great, right?
And
That
for
first,
example, lots of people are extremely uncomfortable with horror films. That does not mean that
yeah,
every horror film ever made is great.
yeah, yeah. So they're just, I've also seen this, by the way, where the answer choice is correct, but it's generalized, right? So it's not like a specific example, it's just like the general overarching thing. And so
Concept, yeah.
like if you're not looking for it, then you'll be like, what are they talking about?
Well, and this is also when you get answer choices that are in this form, they're harder to process than
Yeah.
ones that are giving you like, real examples of something or real sentences or real additional pieces of information. These are just more abstract. Yeah. And that's it. That's question 23. So how are you feeling overall about this section?
Better. One of the things I'm really curious about, actually, that I really don't know because it's focus, is can I redeem the issues that I had with data insights? I'm just going to assume that I can because I have no choice. But also, like, I don't think it was so bad. I don't think data insights was so bad because I did get like some of the questions right. The timing, yeah, the timing cost me, but with 2 sections to make up for it, I feel okay.
Yeah, data insights is just 1/3 of your test. It's not half of your test. So
Yeah, the other thing I will mention, I found myself missing sentence correction, not because I love sentence correction, but because it's a chance to make up time. from the old test.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like critical reasoning and reading comp, they just take however long they take. And
Yeah,
so
there's more time investment to get to understand the story that's going on.
yeah, so I felt like, I do this anyway, that I'm really snappy with verbal, and I'm willing to cut bait on a lot of questions, but I feel like it was more important than it used to be on the old test. Also, the other thing I'll mention, I feel like with fewer questions, there's less room for error. You know what I mean? So these shorter sections, I really have to pay attention
Yeah, I
to
mean, on the
not
one
get
hand, I'm
behind.
thrilled that the test is shorter just because my brain is not
Yeah,
dying by the
yeah,
last hour of the test.
yeah.
So I love that. But yeah, it means for each section, you can't sort of just meander. Like you have to be really, really careful about the time, because if you get in trouble, there's not as much time left to make up for it. Yeah. All right. Anybody have any other questions for Ryan or anything that you want to talk about? Oh, and I'm going to give you, let me go grab it. I'm going to give you the link to that article I was talking about that has the time management strategy that he was using.
Oh
Hang on.
yeah, cool. While you're looking for that, I will tell you guys that article that Stacey's gonna find is probably better than what I did. I used the general like framework of it, but I didn't do the scratch paper exactly like I should have because I kind of forgot how. I'm not quite used to Focus yet, so like I said, this is kind of a trial run for me.
That's
But
really
yeah, the
cool.
general benchmark timings are going to be the same as what you saw me use today.
I think I did something funky there.
What did you do?
This is, because it's incorporating my search term because I just searched on Google to find it. There's the clean link.
I see. Oh,
I
we
was
also
like,
got a
what
Q&A.
happened
Is there a recording of the first part? Yeah, there should be, right, Stacey?
Yes, so there's a recording of the first part. I haven't gone and looked at our YouTube channel, but I think it should be up by now because it's been a couple weeks. Let's go look. But yeah, so YouTube is where our YouTube channel is where we're putting up these recordings.
If you guys want to go watch me not do well. I crashed and burned timing wise on the data insight section, the video that Rana was asking about. But I actually think it is well worth watching, so you know exactly what not to do on data insights.
Yeah, for sure.
There was a multi-source reasoning that killed me on time, and yeah, you'll see it on the recording.
Here's our GMAT page with the videos. The first one on that page, the most recent one, which is from 3 weeks ago, is Ryan's, the first one that he just did a couple weeks ago, the DI. And then this one will be up hopefully next week. It might get interrupted by Thanksgiving here in the US because it's a short week for us next week, but this one will be up soon. And then the third one, the where we find out how you did ultimately, is
I'm so excited.
So that's he'll do the quant section in that third one, and that one is going to be on Monday, December 4th, also at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So please join us for that. And anything else, or should we shut this down? Let us know. You are very welcome. It was fun. I'm glad I got to watch Ryan do that. I told him last time, better him than me. I'm glad to watch him do it. I don't want to do it. Too much pressure.
I'm pretty happy with this verbal section. I feel like a professional.
You were rolling. You were rolling on this section. It was good. I feel confident for you on this section. All right, everybody, we're going to shut things down. Thanks so much for joining us, and hope to see you here in a couple more weeks when we'll finish this off and see how Ryan did on the test.
Cool. Bye, guys.